This is Pamela Kuhn, and the curtain is up on Center Stage, the show about the arts and the artists behind their work. The Flinn Gallery has been a delightful and consistent addition to my rota of interviews over the last decade. And now their new exhibition, the first show of their 95th season, is opening on September 14th, entitled Forms of Connection. This installation features the work of artists Jeila Gueramian and Tom Nussbaum. The curators of this show are Leslee Asch, Dianne, Niklaus, and Maggie, Dimock. I have with me today the artists and curators to discuss this wonderful opening. It seems perfect to me that the Forms of Connection beautifully describes what the Flinn Gallery is all about. Connection to community through art in a setting of learning and resource at Greenwich Library, while remaining true to the language and powerful impact of art by acclaimed international artists. The Flinn Gallery is a testament to the power of a group that celebrates art as the most profound form of connection. This opening features a juxtaposition of surreal fantasy within complex structures mixed with the cozy, safe haven of textiles, all inviting us to enrich our inner childlike nature in awe and wonder. Thank you, Leslee Asch, Dianne, Niklaus, and Maggie Dimock, for introducing these artists to us today. And I want to introduce our artists here on Zoom, Jeila Gueramian and Tom Nussbaum. Thank you all for being with me. But first, before I bring in our artists to speak about their work, I just want to speak to Leslee Asch, who is the chair of the Flinn Gallery. So Leslee, how proud of you are about this opening?
Well, it's fantastic. I mean, to be kicking off the 95th season is pretty remarkable. We're a nonprofit in a library, and it hasn't always been the Flinn, as you well know, but really the 95th season means the 95th season that there has been a functioning gallery within the Greenwich Library proper. And that's quite an amazing thing. We are a volunteer organization, which is remarkable in and of itself that it's continued for 95 years. We are very blessed. I mean, being chair might be not fun, might not be fun, but it is, because it's a great group of people. We have over 40 members of the committee, and they come from all serious walks of life. So some are still working. Maggie is actually a professional curator at the Greenwich Historical. I hope I'm okay to say that. Dianne is the head of marketing there also. And I was the executive director at the Silvermine Art Center. People come from all different backgrounds, most from art, but not all. We have lawyers, we have accountants, we have people that can work in all different capacities. And it really makes us function as a very cohesive group that can do all of the different aspects that a gallery requires. So it's quite a privilege to be there on the 95th. I will just say, Dianne and I co-curated an exhibit for the 90th. So we're back again.
Back together again. I love it.
We're back together again. So I just thought that was kind of fun. And the one that we did then was really more keyed into the fact to looking forward and looking back. That's what it was called. But this one is just so joyous and such a wonderful thing to bring. You said everything that needed to be said as far as the place of the gallery and the community, and I think you said it much better than I would. So I'll leave it at that. And it's pretty exciting that we're in our 95th season.
It's very exciting. And, you know, this sense of community that you have established there is really extraordinary. But we are lucky in Greenwich, Connecticut. We are rich with museums, with the Bush Hawley Greenwich Historical Society. I mean, we're rich with so much. Dianne, I want to ask you, what was the selection process for this installation?
It's pretty it varies a bit by show depending on distances and context of the art, but the three of us in the early summer, maybe late spring, we actually made visits. I mean, the original selection process, there is an actual committee in terms of selecting artists and coming up with a thematic focus for each show. I am not on the selections committee, but
I am.
is. And but the process is quite a long one. I mean, it really goes on for the year in advance, if not more. Artists either are, I'm not sure in this case actually, but artists either apply or we seek them out. We may come up with a theme initially. So maybe
I think Tom actually submitted, if I have that right. No, I'm wrong. So we found them. Jeila, you did not. So I think
whatever it
we
is,
sought you out. So
it's kismet.
usually it's a mix. I have to say, artists do submit, but usually it's about 25% of what we are showing, the artists we are showing have submitted, and the others are ones that the committee has either thought would go well with ones who had submitted, or just go well with an idea that we have, or start to work together. So usually there's some starting point.
Okay.
And once that was set, we went on more methodically. We visited each, Tom and Jeila, in their studios, in Jeila's case, an actual exhibition that was taking place, and then through dialogue and coming, just how the artists' works kind of merge and complement each other, and that dynamic that we all, I think all five of us together kind of worked as a process, both during and after those visits.
So Maggie,
one thing interesting here is that the selections committee actually fell in love with both Tom's work and Jeila's, just as artists, and had thought about them in different combinations, and then finally we realized that this was the one that was meant to be.
Meant to be for this opening, this auspicious opening. So Maggie, it is very cool to be a curator, isn't it? Especially with Leslee Asch and Dianne Niklaus.
Oh, I am so lucky. This is my first time stepping into the curator spot with the Flinn. This is my first experience, and I've been in Greenwich for about 4 years working with the Historical Society, but this has been, I mean, to work with Leslee and Dianne makes everything so fun and so intelligent and thoughtful, and to be able to work with these two artists has been really, really exciting as well, because as you say, I mean, a show like this is all about interplay, and this, I think, Tom and Jeila, your work in so many ways, you know, speaks. I mean, it has its own identity, but then there are all of these kind of threads. Sorry, I keep making unintentional puns that are sort of together. Yeah, in terms of just the reference to kind of familiarity, childhood, or recognizable objects, but then spun in very unexpected ways. I mean, this show has been so interesting and so exciting, and I think it's going to be a great kickoff to this season. And I've had such a great experience. I really have.
That's wonderful. She'll be back, won't she, girls? I mean, I love that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, she's part of the team. She's part of the team now. So we have formally enlisted her as part of the committee. So she will be doing other things. Yes.
Welcome, Maggie Dimock. Okay, let's bring in our artists. So Jeila, I think you're sitting in there in a meditative state right now, and I love that, with the backdrop of all your playful items. Now, you had me at hello, because your work has taken me back to being a child. And that is your intention, and it's worked. That means you are successful. You have this beautiful interplay with textiles. And what I really found touching about your work is they are found textiles. It's like if an inanimate object has a life, you're bringing them back to life. You know, can you explain your process and your work to us?
Absolutely. You described it exactly. I started working with these textiles because they brought back such memories of people's childhood. They're kind of making the fort under the grandmother's dining room table kind of feeling.
Yes.
And, they really, really did. I kind of stumbled upon it and really realized how touching these things were. And then in addition to that, the love and energy that goes into these items that, you know, I find people give them to me, I find them in like, you know, yard sales and, you know, thrift stores, but the love and energy that goes into those items, it's like you can kind of, you feel it somehow, and, you know, and yeah, so let's see, what else?
You're at play all the time, and you're
If
saving
you can
things.
see the rest of my studio, you see how much it is. I kind of work in this chaos all the time, but
it's a lovely chaos, and it's a soft chaos. And I want to know, you know, I was reading about you that you actually went to Parsons, I believe, and then you took time off to have children, and then coming back to it, you were crafting, you were merging two worlds, actually making things for your children, but also creating this profound artistic life.
absolutely. I felt, I don't think I would have had the confidence to go forward doing, you know, quote, fine art before having kids. When I was younger, I felt that the art world was just so serious. I didn't feel good enough or like serious enough. And so I turned my back on it for many years. I worked a little bit in illustration and things like that, but never just kind of that true expression of, you know, this fine art of where it comes from your inner heart. And but after having kids, you know, I started getting back into it little by little. And then at the Wassaic project, I proposed kind of bringing these two worlds together, kind of like this craft area, and then bringing in my drawing and illustrative side and really putting the energy into it. And it really did come together in a great way, and been going ever since.
I love it. You're talking to a girl here who grew up with grandmothers who only crocheted Afghans all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was nothing else to do, there was a lot of crocheting done. But I realize and appreciate some of the finite work, and you must have these little discoveries of worlds when you find pieces to use. Like for instance, I saw that you stretched one crocheted piece over a hula hoop.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
I really love, I discovered that with in the items, there's a lot of beauty in the negative space of the stitches, and kind of stretching them out really just kind of shows off the detail in a way that I think people don't think about in the, you know, just the beauty of all that detail is
Yeah,
really
it's rather extraordinary. I love your work. And Tom, in a similar way, you're creating your own world. And I do believe that in some of your structures, they come out of a presence of you, let's see, being in third grade when you made a structure out of, I think it was toothpicks.
Yeah, I think yeah. I have been making things ever since I was a little kid, and it was something that I just did when I was very young and continued to do, just have continued to do my entire life. But when I was little, I made sculptures out of toothpicks, and I made little I invented toys out of erasers and paper clips and scotch tape and paint, and building things and painting them. And I essentially am still building things and painting them now. But the content has clearly become much more sophisticated. But yeah, it's just making things with my hands has been a continuous part of my life since I can.
As a youngster, when you were making things, did you consider it to be art then?
I did not. I certainly did not. I just enjoyed the process of creating. I never thought of I thought of myself more as a maker, but not as an artist. And it wasn't until I was in high school and went to art school briefly that I realized that I've always searched for freedom to make whatever I wanted, and I realized if I call what I'm doing art, then it can be anything. And so it gave me the freedom to continue my work and do whatever I wanted. So, you know, for a while I was doing functional ceramics, and when I was in high school, making things that were, you know, usable, and studying form and thinking about how well things should function. And in the art world, of course, nothing has to be functional, and that is incredibly freeing. And so I could, you know, just work and make whatever I wanted under the heading of art.
It's exciting what comes out of this. Can I ask you what your favorite work is? What you like to work with? Is it metal? Is it paper?
Yeah, I don't have an allegiance to any particular material. A lot of artists work with materials, and their emphasis is on the material itself. And I work with anything that I can get my hands on, and most of my work is painted, and consequently, it doesn't really matter what the material is. So I'm working on sculptures now that have welded steel, and they have epoxy and wood and paper and tin and styrofoam and plaster, and all of these things combine together to make the forms that I want, but then everything is painted. So I'm just looking to, it's like I'm building a three-dimensional canvas, and then onto which the color is applied. And the painting becomes part of the form also. So I will make anything out of anything if I think it's gonna last a long time and have it make for a nice painted surface.
And when you go to a new material, or when you go to your welding, do you have a form in mind? Does something come to you as an inspiration, or does it just happen in front of your eyes?
Yeah, I do work mostly intuitively. I do some very brief sketches, but when you're working three-dimensionally, it's very difficult, at least for me, to draw a sculpture. And really a sculpture is created in three-dimensional space. And the only way that I know how to do that is to work in three-dimensional space. And so I do have, I know exactly what I'm doing, but I don't know where I'm going. And because it's sculpture, it's controlled by gravity. And so I generally start at the bottom and work my way up. Making discoveries and working in three-dimensional space along the way.
I love that, a reference to gravity. You know, this is so important in art. I talk about this in singing all the time, that we must use gravity actually to ground us and have that strength. What I find interesting, Tom and Jeila, about your work, first of all, you use such profound color in your work. I mean, walking into the Flinn Gallery is going to be this cavalcade of color, first of all. But second is this definite theatricality that's going on, you know, independently, you know, between these artists, but yet coming together. And again, that's another connection, which I think is a paradox, and I think it's fantastic for the Flinn to offer this. Jeila, I know that you have a background in theater and TV and design. How has that played into your work here?
I definitely love to create a world to walk into, and I think that definitely was fed by that background in film. And I've just so I mean I'm always trying to bring someone into a world, whether it's a small light box or a big room installation. And I think there is some type of magic that of being in an immersive situation that I guess was fueled by that. I don't know.
Oh yeah, without
and plus
question.
all the skills. I mean, I worked for many years. It's just, I feel like everything you do in life kind of always ends up coming together in some way. So all that background of sewing and fabricating things just really, kind of all became me, who I am today. So
Especially in theater where you have to make a very bold statement. And when you need a product done by a deadline, it has to be done. I mean, and you're pulling it together, which is advantageous for any artist, I believe. And Tom, I feel that there's a sense of music in your work. I'm looking at your background right now and I'm seeing all of these circles, and it's an endless kind of energy. Is there an element of that in your art within you when you're creating?
Yeah, yeah, sure. When you're building a sculpture, when I'm building a sculpture, I'm thinking of the composition, and music is composed, and it has a flow, and it has highlights and crescendos, and there's a lot of improvisation. So I do listen to, when I'm working, I listen to John Coltrane, and I listen to J.S. Bach, and so there is a kind of orchestration going on. And when I use color, I think about it in a musical analogy is a good way to think about it, because I have three mixed colors. I have 100 colors in front of me, and I'm trying to corral them and make sense of them and have them move your eye around the sculpture, and they are expressive, and in a way it's a lot like an orchestra putting together a complex piece of music where there are lots of different elements working toward the same goal.
Yeah, I think you're right. Are there either of you synesthetes?
Jeila,
That's great. Good for you.
I mean, a little bit. I'm not going to say, but I absolutely, I do see sounds a lot as color. Sometimes, not all the time, but it's amazing when it happens.
Wow. Okay, that's remarkable. So, like with David Hockney and some of the rest, you have a little bit of an advantage where it becomes actually an entire orchestra of color and sound and numbers. I mean, I always think that's extraordinary for artists. It adds another dimension. There's no doubt about it. Wow, that's beautiful. Well, I think you both have so much to offer. Is there one piece in this installation that really speaks to you that you hope will connect with the observer coming in? Tom, I'll start with you. Is there anything that stands out of your work on display in this installation?
Well, it's interesting because my work is primarily sculpture. So when you come in to see the show, you'll see most of my work on pedestals. I also have one piece that hangs on the wall, and I think what's going to be interesting for viewers is to see the connections that Jeila and I have in our work, because one of the things that I'm very influenced by are patterns that are found in textiles from all over the world. And I sort of collect a number of textiles myself, and I have a lot of quilts and crocheted things and I'm inspired by that. And so the way that I use pattern and color, I think, very much relates to the way that Jeila is working. And I think the really fun thing about this show is going to be seeing the interactions between our work. So
this marriage is kind of a little musical fugue. I love it. We have one idea starts, and another is interlaid over it. Dianne, can I ask you?
we can't get married yet. We just met today, so.
Oh, is that right? This is fantastic. I feel we're at play here. I feel we're at play. Dianne, is there one piece in this installation that really jumps out at you? Mm.
Wow, that's really hard, especially because we're working I'm starting to even visualize it more through this conversation. It's coming to life thanks to you, Pamela, because it's really the dialogue itself is giving it such life and content and context. But I think, well, of course, we're looking forward to the unknown part of the environment that Jeila is going to be creating at the back of the gallery. You know, we love Tom's work and we've seen Jeila's work in installations, but as you know, Pamela, installations are something that I've done at the Flinn, and we don't know what's going to happen until like it's done. So I'm kind of partial to that that aspect of this show, as we all, you know, it can be stressful, but it's really, from experience, I know that it's wonderful. And so I know I can speak for all of us that we're so we're excited to see that the evolutionary part of this piece in the back that Jeila is going to be. I know it's in progress and will be in during the whole installations segment until opening or slightly before.
So, this is going to be great fun. This is really going to be great fun.
Just to clarify that, when Diane's talking about the back area, that will be an area that you can actually just walk into and be enveloped by it. But we also will have some of Jeila's works interspersed with Tom, so the interactions are in fact seen well. So we're excited about that.
So exciting. Here again with the Flinn, we have one rectangular open space. And what you girls can do with that space is so amazing to me, time and time again. I love that. So we're going to have these worlds welcoming us. And I know I'm going to want to go and lay down in Jeila's world in the back for coziness. And Maggie, how about you? I mean, this is a baptism by fire for you, really, but what fun.
No, it's been wonderful. And I think, I mean, to the extent, I'm just thinking about what you had asked Dianne about, if there was sort of a particular piece or something that resonates. Oh, sorry, there's a fire truck going on behind me. Okay. I mean, I have to say, we really had such a amazing time being able to spend time both with Tom and with Jeila in the preparation of this show. Tom, we got to hang out with you in your studio, which was so much fun. I mean, we got to kind of delve into the archives with you and kind of see your whole process. Wow. Sorry, still fire engine. And think, I mean, I was so taken by, you know, you were talking a little bit before about how both of you, how you kind of have often developed your work through the making of it. You know, Tom, you kind of talking about being a young person building things with toothpicks. And it made me think about, you know, how much either of you work in drawing, you know, translating a drawing to a piece versus actually working kinetically. And in your studio, I mean, I'm so taken by how much your work works. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you had talked about, you know, sort of envisioning something on the page, but then thinking about bringing an impossible drawing to life. And I think, you know, the linearity of your pieces speaks to that so much. And then for Jeila's work, I mean, we were able to walk through a really amazing installation of yours that up at the Leslee Asch project. And again, just the way that you're sort of inhabiting space. I mean, both bodies of work, you know, in their own senses, but then I think within the gallery are going to be all about kind of transforming, you know, the space around them through color and through line. And I think that's why it's just sort of envisioning it. And so much of it is still kind of coming together, you know, and that anticipation of the possibility is what's really exciting from, I guess, from a curator's perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question about this. Oh, thank you, Maggie. And Leslee, I have a question for you. Because
Yes.
we are of a certain age, you and I mean, do you hearken back to that time of crocheted blankets and crocheted hats and the clothing that we wore, in the 60s
Oh,
and 70s?
the
I mean,
60s.
you know, and there's
I guess I hadn't really thought about that, but yes. I don't crochet. I don't do any kind of uh so I don't have the patience for things that actually need to need to be precise. I cook, I don't bake, I mean, I don't follow rules very well. But what resonates for me most in this overall show is, as you know, I mean, I have a puppetry background and I was making those. So I can't say I didn't follow through with that, but I think it's really important. You said it beautifully, and I think the artists are speaking very well for themselves. Um, it's really important to me that as an adult who loves color and joy and openness and some freedom, that things that are all of those qualities, we're so ready to give them up and just say those are for kids. And I'm not, and none of us are. So I think that's really, for me, that's really one of the things that's so important in this show is these are two serious artists, whether they can't or initially called themselves artists or not, they are artists and they really have transformed their work. And we will all have fun with it, which is great. It doesn't mean we're not having kids there. We will have a section. We've been starting to develop. One of our members is a former children's librarian, and she has great ideas for things. So we have a little corner that's become the play area, and kids know to go right over to that corner because otherwise we're saying no, 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 don't touch, don't touch, don't touch, and then
right.
there we can say here, touch. This is what this is for. So that's great. So we do welcome kids, but it really is an art exhibition with all of the beauty and wonder of these two artists.
And I would say the power of texture and the power of textiles, I mean, is really on view here, and quite profoundly. Tom, I have to say, when I was a child, I was the daughter of believe it or not, a car mechanic in a small town. And I didn't aspire to be an opera singer then. But one thing that really affected me in my life was watching him weld. And I remember watching the drama of welding, all the apparatus he would wear, which was like a costume, like a helmet. And then, of course, the fire that came out of the welding process and what was born out of it. And again, we're talking about a firm structure that we see in a lot of your work. And then we see the melting of two things coming together. And as a child, that hit me so profoundly. And I remember when I did my first Wagner opera, all I could think about was my father welding. When I watched you in your interviews and you in your studio welding, I had the same feeling. So there must be this fantastic conjugation of the elements when you go to welding. Is there a relationship you have with that process?
Yeah, I mean, working with steel and welding it's a wonderful, it's a kind of magical thing to do because it's very powerful and working with the way that I work with steel rods and linear shapes, I can build in space. It's almost like building a three-dimensional drawing in space.
Mm,
And I can only do that with welding.
really?
So I can take a 3 or 4 foot long piece of steel and weld one end of it onto another, and it will just hang there completely held by itself, at one end. And it allows me to draw in three-dimensional space. So it is a wonderful way to work. And it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of fun, working with fire and working with steel, and it's a very enjoyable and very focused way to work. So,
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. As you talk about the power, I mean, it's really exciting. There's an electricity in what you're doing there that comes alive. Wow, I love it. I love it. Well, I have to say, I think this is going to be a very successful installation at the Flinn Gallery. I want to thank all of you, but before we close, I just want to go around the room here, and I just want to ask if there's anything else you can offer personally about this exhibition that's going to entice everyone to come in to see it at the Flinn. Maggie, let's start with you.
The first thing that I don't know why this comes to mind. Maybe it's just because of the enticingness of the pieces, but I think this is one of those shows where everyone's going to want to come in and touch. You're going to, so much of it's I think it calls to you. This is work that really kind of calls to you, and it cuts across that divide of what is kind of a certain kind of fine art. I mean, we'll have this beautiful gallery space, and so much work goes into putting the Tom's work and Jeila's work together into this very carefully curated way, but I think it'll feel so natural and it'll feel so immersive. So I don't know, I feel everyone's going to have their fingers out, sort of ready to kind of jump in.
I hope so. What a way to start the season. And Jeila, if I had to ask you, what one word or phrase would sum up your work? Could you put that into words? It can be a long phrase, Jeila.
I'm not great with words. This is more my language. I think I love magic, and I feel like I don't know, I could put it all in that word, but I think that's a big word. And I think I do feel like the magic comes, it's not my magic, it's the magic that I'm experiencing, or everybody's experienced. So I guess that's the word.
I love that. And that's why you look so young, Jeila. You look like you're still 20. You look like that kid, who's desiring to crawl into the soft furnishings. I adore that. I adore that. And Leslee Asch, I think you've already answered this, but if there's just one phrase to get people to come into the Flinn this September, what would it be?
I think it's just, I have said it, but I think it's joy would be the word that I would use. I think that it's a joyful way to begin our season, which we have 5 wonderful shows lined up for this season. Our season does run from September through June, and I can't think of a more joyful way to kick it off.
That's fantastic. And don't you know, we all need joy in our lives right now.
Right. We sure
A
do.
lot. Thank you for offering. Dianne, what is it about this installation that you adore?
Well, adore. Yeah, I'm loving the entire experience. And what I want to say, which will get us there, but as often the case with a show, as curators in general, coming up with a title is always a challenge, or can be. And we did have quite a bit of a process with this show. Many iterations, combinations, options, ideas, things that we didn't want to say, things that we didn't want to connect with. But forms of connection, I have to say, maybe especially since this conversation, and metaphorically, that process, the dynamic of connecting, as you very beautifully said at the beginning of the show about why we do this, and how Tom and Jeila have made, just emphasize the role of connecting as a process, as a catalyst of process of connecting things, whether they're physical or connecting an experience to a final product. I think what's going to be most wonderful about this, I hope and anticipate, and will endeavor to make happen, is the connections that just will spontaneously be generated by the viewers as they experience the art of these amazing artists, to make their own connections, because as we see, just that is what it's about. It's about connecting as community. It's about connecting thoughts, ideas, and relatability, I think is something that is important to me in a gallery experience. Feeling that someone's going to respond to something one way or another. I think that whatever connections they may be, we can't direct, but we can facilitate that experience. So I really think I feel much more excited about it, thanks to you and this opportunity to really have it gel in a different kind of way of feeling, wow, there's a lot here.
There sure is. And thank you all for pulling this together. And Tom, wow, if I had to describe your world, I don't know where I would start because it is so varied. And I have it in my mind that you don't feel you're making art still. You're just making things. And there's a certain beauty and energy about that. Like in my world, there's a certain energy between the notes, between musical notes, It's kind of undiscovered, but yet we all feel it profoundly. What is your world? I mean, how would you share it with us? And what do you want people to walk away with after observing your art?
Wow, that's a big question.
That is a big question.
I am a serious artist. I'm building sculpture, building form. I'm very interested in color. I'm using forms from architecture and from vessel making, like basket forms and forms of buildings and human forms, and I'm combining those forms together in a very improvisational and intuitive way. So I'm inventing. I'm trying to create a world that I see and that I want to live in. And so I do think, it's the artist, one role of the artist is to create a world that invites people in and allows them to explore and discover things. When you come to see this show, you're going to see a lot of color and form, and then underneath that is a lot of serious thought about art and sculpture and what it means to be an artist, and so there's a lot of content there. And I think it's for you to come and explore and discover, and I think you'll be happy that you did.
That is so well said. I love it. I love the energy in this discussion. I love the very, very interesting energy between you all. I mean, I think that's what cooks in this, and that's what's so strong again about the Flinn and Tom Nussbaum and Jeila Gueramian. I have to thank you for sharing your art. I think you are all building bridges to connections, and there's no question about it. Now, Leslee, I just have to talk about the practical nature. How can people find more information about this show?
Well, our website is updated. They can go on our website, which is flinngallery.com. And when you'll see right on the homepage, you'll see a tile that has actually the piece of Tom's that he was talking about, that is a wall piece. When you click on that, you'll go to our show page, and that has a lot of information on both of their works, and both of them will be coming to speak. We have artist talks on the 15th and the 22nd of October. So that's when they'll have a chance to actually speak about their work. And I'm very excited to have that be the case. So I think Jeila's first. I should be looking at the form. Jeila, you're on the 15th?
I think so.
I should have it in front of me.
My
It will
brain's
say
not there yet.
directly on the website.
Actually,
Go to the website.
it's
Look at
Tom. Tom Nussbaum will be October 15th at 2 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
And
Okay,
then
there we go.
Jeila
Yes,
will
I'm the 22nd.
the 22nd
Thank you,
at also
Pamela.
2
You
p.m.
keep us all together.
Then I have
Yes,
to
there'll be
say,
at 2 p.m.
I have to say to all the listeners and observers of this, these talks are rather wonderful. I mean, the
Yeah.
questions come from the audience that are, wow, can be from left field and very enlightening. And it gives you a chance to be up close and personal with the artists. And so if you want to see and actually be in the presence of the wonder of these masters in their art form, please try to attend these talks because they're rather profound.
And
Listen,
our opening is September 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. and we will all be there. So come and meet us and talk a bit. So
okay,
the artists will just say a short little bit about their work then, but they'll be there, so they'll be able to talk more. With
and that's a
people.
chance to have a glass of wine and actually get up close and personal with the artists again.
Yes.
That's fantastic. And how long does this run?
It's actually a longer show. We're doing long shows now. It runs through November 1st, so that's 7
Fantastic.
weeks, which is
Fantastic.
a wonderful length of time. So yeah, there's
That's
plenty of opportunity, but don't leave it to the last minute. Come on over. And I think, as you said, the artist talks are always very exciting. It brings out all sorts of things. I mean, thank you for this, Pamela, because I think this will go, once it's ready, it will go on our website as well, and people will be able to learn more of the background, and hopefully that also excites them to come and see it. So thank you for this.
my pleasure. And I'm so thrilled to have you all. I'm so thrilled to announce this. I'm so thrilled that it's your 95th season. I find that so hard to believe. Wow. And it's so exciting. So I want to thank Leslee Asch, chair of the Flinn Gallery, and Dianne, Niklaus, and Maggie, Dimock, who are our co-curators for this show. And then our artists, Jeila, Gueramian, and Tom Nussbaum. Thank you so much for sharing your time, for sharing your energy, for sharing your observances and opening your souls to us. So we really understand you and thusly your art. So all the best for a fantastic show. And I'm inviting everyone to come out. Please check in with the Flinn Gallery online. And I hope you will take time to visit me and some of my other shows like this at centerstagewithpamelakuhn.com. So thank you again, guys. All the best. I can't wait to meet you again. I can't wait to live in your worlds. And thank you for
Thank
building
you.
bridges. Thank you.
Pamela.
All right,
you.
everyone out there, stay safe. This is Pamela Kuhn, and the curtain is now down on Center Stage.